Hello, and thank you for watching this AutoHotkey tutorial for beginners. In this video, we're going to cover a lot of different topics. We're going to start off discussing which versions of AutoHotkey to use. Then we're going to cover which editor to use. There's a lot of different editors out there, and I've tried a lot of them. The one I recommend is by far the easiest to start with. Then we're going to jump into doing some little pre-work. We're going to use hotkeys, which is actually a tool that you can use with AutoHotkey to launch programs and stuff, but we're going to first use them to work smarter, not harder. We're going to learn how to use them to edit our code and make it faster as we develop code. Then I'm going to show you how to launch programs and scripts and load a website with them. And then next we're going to jump into using HotStrings. And the HotStrings you can think of as like a text expansion type thing. So you type a couple letters and bam, there goes a lot of text, whatever you want to put in there. After that, I show you a script where there's about 4,000 words in a spell check. And so what's great about AutoHotkey is any Windows program you're in, you can have this script running and it will spell check across all of your programs. It's another just a great example of HotStrings. Then we switch back to using a few more hotkeys where we show you how to remap codes. Let's say you're using Outlook and you don't like a hotkey to launch a new email. I'll teach you how you can hit a different key combination and it will send the key combination that Outlook knows. And so it's a great way, if you don't like the programs you're using, to remap the keys. Then we work on how to send a mouse click to given coordinates. Of course, first you have to understand, identify where those coordinates are, and then we send the mouse clicks there. Lastly, we wrap up on the programming side of being able to compile a script. And this is a really great thing about AutoHotkey. It's super, super easy to compile a script, and that way you can use it on a different computer where it doesn't have AutoHotkey installed, or you can give it to a friend and they can run it on their Windows computer. At the very end of this script video, I have a lot of resources where to go when you get in trouble, a lot of great sources where you have live support, where people are just willing to help you. The AutoHotkey community and forum, the people are just great and very helpful. My site, I have a lot of tutorials on them, but this is places where you can go directly and get one-to-one help. In this video, you'll notice I mentioned a lot of stuff. There's a lot of pop-ups with the actual links, and hyperlinks of where you can go. Just make sure you check in the description down below, because I'm going to put in the time codes of exactly in the video when it was, and the URL there is too. So you don't have to try to type the URLs, right? So make sure you wait for that. And I really appreciate you watching this video. Please like it if you think it really helped you. I spent quite a bit of time on this video to make sure that it really helps new people. So I hope you like this tutorial for beginners. Cheers. In case this is the first video you've seen of me, my name's Joe Glines and I'm from The Automator, and I teach people how to automate their PCs. It's my passion to help people work smarter, not harder. Come to my site, check it out. I have over 600 videos on YouTube. I have 3 Udemy courses teaching AutoHotkey, so all these are great resources. There's also some great AutoHotkey books out there. But check us out. Also, if at some point you want to get some work done for you, now I have people working for me that will automate things. So drop me a note. My email will be in this description. And please like the video if you think it was helpful. And looking forward to get going here. Cheers. All right, so the first thing we have to do is to download and install AutoHotkey. So let's go ahead and navigate to autohotkey.com in any browser. When you get there, you're going to see this button that says download. Go ahead and click it. It's going to ask you which of these 3 options do you want. Always download the current version. The other 2, I don't want to get into it. It's a bit advanced to why. There's a lot of logic later that you might choose on, but for now, we're going to download the current version. Go ahead and save it. I already have it here on my desktop. It's a small file here. Save. I'm just going to replace it. And now once it's here, I'm going to say open when done. And it's going to come up with the setup files that you want to install. Now, Windows now is trying to think that maybe this is a bad thing. We'll go ahead and click run anyway. And it's going to come up with this window. Now, the default isn't this Express installation for reasons I don't want to get into. It's not what I recommend, right? And most people say, do the custom installation instead of doing the Unicode 64-bit, do the Unicode 32-bit. And it works with more scripts that you find online, so it's just safer. 64-bit isn't necessarily better, it's just different. And you can install it wherever you like. I'm just go ahead and hit next. I take the defaults. On this screen as well, I take all the defaults, don't change anything. And basically you're done. Now that we have AutoHotkey installed, let's work on getting an editor or an IDE. An IDE is short for Integrated Development Environment. And I highly, highly recommend you install something. I'm going to recommend Site for AutoHotkey. It's written specifically for using with AutoHotkey. Technically, you could use either Notepad or WordPad or almost anything that can edit a text file, because The AutoHotkey code is written in plain text, and that just means when you open it, you'll see the actual characters and words there, and you can recognize them and you could save it. However, there's a lot of functionality that using TextPad wouldn't allow you to do, like relaunch the script, or assist you in typing the code you might want, or hit F1, highlight a word, hit F1, and bring up the support, AutoHotkey support. All of these things Site will do for you automatically. Let's go ahead, let me share my screen here, and on the main page that we're working from, I have a download for AutoHotkey, site for AutoHotkey here. So let's go ahead, I'm going to click this right now and we'll get it started here. It's not a big program. This is from my site. I just make it for convenience because it might disappear in the forum at some point. So that's going to download it and we'll run it here in a second. But what I wanted to point out is if you come up here, there's this whole page dedicated to videos where I've taught people how to do, it looks like I have at least 18 videos there. I'm doing some advanced stuff. Now, I don't recommend you start off here, right? Because the great thing about Site, and you'll realize this when we start programming in it, is it's super easy. It has a nice toolbar. It has a lot of functionality. It doesn't take a lot of learning. There's not a steep learning curve, and yet it's very simple and easy to use. So let's go ahead and install it. I'm gonna hit Control G in Chrome. That'll, well, let's see. I can do it right here. I don't have to do that. I'm gonna say Open, right? So I don't even have to navigate to it. Now it's going to come up and say, do you want the quick setup, install? I'm going to hit install just to see what it's doing. My default location is going to be different than yours. Don't worry about that. Install it wherever you want it. It'll find AutoHotkey's main install file, and that's where mine is. And then you're going to click install. But it's going to come up and just say, hey, do you want to run these updates? There's 2 updates it'll download, and just say yes. And that's it. And then Site's installed. You have this nice toolbar up here. It's a clean input interface. So when you have the vertical split on, this vertical split, leave it off, I would recommend it. I think it makes more sense to have it down here. Mine just happened to be closed up. So this is where you'll see output. And this is where you'll see a lot of debug information. Mainly the big one is like, hey, the script didn't launch. And there's a problem. Like if we put something here and try to launch it, oh, it wants to save it first. Well, fine, save. HotKey script, great. Now if I try to launch it, it's going to tell me, hey, this file has a problem. Specifically, hey, what in the world is REFFD? And it tells you where it is, right? Often they'll tell you the line that the problem's on. But this is this little stuff that it really helps you understand what in the world's going on with your script. So I highly recommend you install. There's also Notepad++, AHK Studio, which is the editor I use now, but it's more advanced. And this is by far the easiest to install, easiest to pick up and use. It's really a great advanced program for editing any kind of text. There's a lot of search and replace stuff you can do in it. So now let's go ahead and get into coding. All right, now that we have Site and AutoHotkey installed, let's go ahead and start working on our first script. So we're going to jump in here, and I just have a folder. This folder, it's in my temp directory, and it's just keeping all the files together for me. So go in somewhere, right-click, and say New, and I'm going to say New AutoHotkey Script. Now this is going to generate a little bit of code in this file. See, it's 1 kilobyte, it's not 0. And we're going to call this thing test. I'm going to hit right enter key to save it, save the renaming. And now I'm going to right-click again and say Edit. And because Site was installed, it's the default editor. It is going to open this script in Site for us. And so we can see several things here. This is really helpful is that notice this color coding. If we open this file in Notepad, this would just all be black text, and this is where having Site installed is really helpful to allow you to easily see this stuff. Things that begin with the £, they're called directives, and we don't need to get into all the advanced stuff about that, but I'm trying to point out they're a little different than other things. This no end, we don't need to go into the explanation of it. You could comment it out. You don't necessarily need it. It's recommended, but you don't have to have it in there. Control Q in Site will toggle, so I could highlight a bunch of these and it would toggle them. But it'll comment them out. So that's Control Q. We'll leave it enabled. It doesn't matter. Now these two are commands, and send mode input. This is the most reliable and it's fast. So we're going to leave that enabled. We'll use send a little bit later, a send command. And the set working directory, that basically says, hey, when I'm accessing stuff, use the directory that I'm in as the default directory. So it's a good thing to have. I definitely recommend having it. Notice this auto assist. This is why I love Site also. In Notepad, you wouldn't have any of this, and it's really much more complicated. So I'm going to hit enter to accept that, comma, and we're going to say force. What this does is says, hey, only launch one instance of this script. So if the script was already running, it would basically relaunch it for you. If it wasn't running, it'll launch it. If you launch it again, it will say, hey, there's already one running. Don't run 2 instances of this, only run 1. I don't understand why this isn't the default in every script. It should be. It's used all the time, right? So I use this as 99.9% of my scripts. It should be in every script as the default. You actually can go in a site and you could change that, or you know, somewhere, and you can change that this is the default value to have in there. I highly encourage you to add it to yours. So this gets us going, and now I'm going to stop here, and then we're going to switch to actually working with hotkeys, because we have a couple other things I want to put in this, but I want to keep these compartmentalized while we're talking about directives and settings. This is stuff that's for your script. There are other things you can put in here, and over time you might learn you might want to have. The next thing we're going to get into is actually creating hotkeys to do some stuff that really helps speed up your coding. All right, so let's jump into making our first script. Now, before we actually do some fun coding stuff, I'm going to demonstrate a couple things to add to your main script, the one that you're working in, to make it easier to develop code. So let's go ahead and start sharing here, and we're going to jump in. Now, to start off, let me show you, there's this script right now is not running. I can tell that one easy way is looking in here. There's no little green H's in here. So we're going to say, let's say message box, hello world. Now I'm going to save this, and when I hit this blue run, it's going to, or I could hit F5, it's going to launch this script. So notice 2 things here. One, here's the hello world message box. This is shows us which script we're in. And see this green H down here, right? This is telling us this script is running. The second I hit OK here, I also want you to notice something with this green H. I hit OK, and suddenly it's gone, right? Why is that? Well, there was nothing else in the script to keep it running, keep it active. And there are a couple things that you could do to do that. If you had a hotkey or a hot string in it, it would automatically stay running. You could add a persistent, a directive called persistent, and this would keep it running. So if I save this, relaunch it, the message box comes up, here's our green H. When I said OK, it stays running. Now, it wouldn't do anything because there's nothing else in this. So we won't leave this in here, but so we're going to add that in our little pile of things to keep in memory. Just remember. So this next one, what we're going to do is, let's say we wanted to be able to easily edit this script. Now, there's a couple ways we could do it. Right now, because it's running and it's down here, I could right-click on this and say edit. So even if site was closed, yeah, we'll keep changes. I can right-click it here and say edit, and it's going to open to my default editor, which is site. I could also come into the main script here and right-click it and say edit, and it will pull it up. But that would be really tedious if you had closed site and you wanted to always edit it. So what I love to do, and we're going to do this with a hotkey, is let's start dabbling in hotkeys. So there are things called modifier keys, and those, the main 4 are Control, Alt, Shift, and the Windows key. Those in AutoHotkey, and so let's add some comments here. So the Alt key is the exclamation point. The Windows key is the pound, and not and yet. The Shift key is the plus sign, and Control key, sorry, and this is the caret, which is above your 6. So these on their own, we wouldn't use these by themselves, but they're called modifiers, and that's because you use them in conjunction with another letter or another key. So let's say every time I hit, we'll do Control H. We want that to run message box hello world. Now I'm going to add a return here, which basically tells AutoHotkey to stop going forward. from that point on. So I'm going to save this. Always remember you have to save and reload it or hit F5. So now it's rerun it. This is another reason, this output window here, this can tell you if there's errors, what line the error is on. So Notepad doesn't have this, and this is where it's really nice that I can, when I relaunch this, you'll see it flash. Also notice when I relaunch it, you'll see it down here, it blinks. And so it's a great way to make sure you understand the changes were absorbed or used. So now I'm going to hit Control H, and bam, there we go, right? And now if I hit enter, it's going to get rid of it. But look, I can hit Control H again, and it pulls it up. So this is a hotkey that's going to launch whatever is between here and here. I could put a second. Let's say I wanted to do this. So now it'll have two. So if now I have to relaunch it again. Now this is the point of what I'm going to show here in a second. Is Control H, and it's going to say hello, and then world, right? So we're using our hotkey to use display a message box with a value in it. Not overly useful, but you get the idea of I can trigger this. We can also trigger other things, which we'll cover here in a minute. But before we get into that, let's say I want to automatically reload this script instead of having to come up here and launch it and then hit right click and say reload or relaunch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to Control R so it makes sense to me. This is a really powerful thing in AutoHotkey. I think it's really understood of that I can make it what makes sense to me, right? So I'm going to change this to Control R, and I'm going to add the command edit. Now this is a special command. Let me also demonstrate here. If I'm in a word and I hit F1, it will pull up the AutoHotkey help, and that's built into Site also. So this is a really great thing here. The AutoHotkey documentation is excellent. You can read about it, and then usually at the bottom it'll show you an example or two of how to use the commands. So I highly recommend, again, using Site and then using that F1 when you get stuck and not sure what it is. So what is this going to do? Well, I'm going to save this and relaunch it so it takes it in. Now, you know what? Let's add here. Oh, I don't want that. That should have been reload. There we go. And let's look at reload real quick. So replaces the current running instance of the script with a new one, right? So that's kind of what we're doing with this F5. We're relaunching it. Of course, reload only works if it's already running. But I'm going to save this, rerun it. Now watch what happens. If I hit Control R, it's funny. It reloads it, but because it triggers the reload. Let me do this a smart way. So I'm going to save this and now hit R, Control R. And now when I'm hitting Control R, so see it says it will reload now. When I hit OK, it's going to trigger that reload. And notice the green H blink down here. So again, Control R, it's going to pull up the message box and then do the OK. I just wanted the message box to show you we're actually in here, right? So now if I hit just Control R, it's going to, well, the first time through, now it's going to reload it. Right, so I can just hit Control R. I don't have to come up here and hit F5. F5 is hard for me on my keyboard to reach, so it's a nice, handy one to be able to say, "Hey, I want to make these changes," and Control R will do that for us. Because see how it reloads it for us. So it's a super helpful one to have in here. I also want to point out if your command is more than one line, then you need the return. If it's not more than one line, so let me comment this out. This is only one line, right? We can bring this one up here, and a lot of these can be put on the same line. And if we do it on the same line, you don't actually need the return. So I'm going to save this, hit Control R again. Now it's reloading for us. So it's great because I can just hit Control R and have it reload for me. Now another one which is really helpful to have. So we're going to say Control E to edit. And now this is the one that I was started to work on earlier here. So this. So here are two that I just love having in here. So now I'm going to hit Control R to take that. Now, if Site was not open, I can hit Control E, and it is going to edit this file. It's going to pull it up for us. So these two hotkeys in the main script that you're working on are, and again, you don't have to use Control R, right? That's my example. but it's super helpful for helping you speed up what you're doing when you're coding, because I don't have to come down here and right click and say reload, or come up here with my mouse or hit F5. The Control R and E or whatever is convenient for you are super easy to do. And then what I often will do is I will use something to trigger. So this is often much more how hotkeys are used. Is, let's say I'll do Control M for a message box, and let's put that on the next line. So message box, hello world. And now, because that is going on the next line, I'm pretty sure, let's just test it. I could have moved this up here, and I'm gonna hit Control R. Oh. See this asterisk up here? That means that there's been changes that haven't been actually saved yet. So now it's saved. Now Control R will relaunch it. And I can do Control M for my hello world, Control E to edit, which is, I'm already in it. So if I was to close this, I can hit Control E and it'll pull it up, and Control R, you can see it blinking down below in the bottom right. So these are three things. Now with this message box, I want to demonstrate you can do other things with hotkeys, right? So let's say I wanted to launch Chrome. Well, no, let's start off with Notepad, because Notepad's a little easier. Let's do Control N. Now Control N is already a hotkey in sight. Right now, if I don't save this, I hit Control N, it's going to open a new tab for me, right? But I want to use Control N in a different way, so I'm going to say run Notepad. Now I don't have. I'll add it here. You don't have to have the exe, and Notepad especially. You don't need the entire path, because Notepad is in the Windows path, and so. But I wanted to start off with it to keep it simple. So I'm going to say Control S, Control R to reload, and then I'm going to say Control N. Unfortunately, it launched Notepad on my other screen here, but let me bring it over here. Close it. Now if I Control N again, yeah, it remembers where it was. So I just made a hotkey to launch Notepad. But let's say we wanted to launch something that's not in the Windows path. Well, we could say, well, I'm going to come down here, go to Properties. I'm going to get the full path, and here, this to the left, I have mine running in debug mode, but this is the path to Chrome. And so I'm going to say, and Control C would be a terrible one, right? Because that's copy. So we don't want to replace copy. So let's do Alt C. So I'm going to do the Alt C. Remember, you got to use, look up here, Alt, the exclamation is the Alt key. So Alt C, and then we're going to say run, and here, paste in this. More often than not, you don't need the double quotes around it, but we'll just leave them here. So I'm going to save this, reload it, Control R, and Alt C now, Alt C, will launch Chrome for me, right? And you can do this with almost any Windows program. You can launch it this way, get the full path to it. Sometimes there's little things with you need to have the set a given directory, can run into some headaches. Or if you want to open a certain file, you can add a space here and add the path to the file after it. But being able to launch programs is a great simple thing. And that's it for this one. Let's do one other one. So the Windows key. So Windows, let's say Windows G. And what is anything that starts with G? We'll just do something. Run grepwin. So I'm going to go to Properties. This is the path to my file. There we go. Now that one doesn't have the double quotes, but it should be fine. I'm running. This is the portable version of it. So I'm going to save this. Sorry, save it, reload it, and now the Windows key G will launch grepwin for me. Grepwin is a search tool that will search across files in your computer. It's free. I highly recommend it if you need to search text inside files. But anyway, you just see it now. I use the Windows key, the Alt key. Let's do one more with Shift. So we're going to do a Shift and Shift. Obviously, the Shift with a letter would be bad on its own, right? Because you want to capitalize letters. But we'll just do Shift T, and I'm just going to be lazy and run calc. I think it's calc.exe. So if I hit Shift T, oh, I didn't save it. Save it, reload it. Shift T just ran my calculator. So there I used the four main modifiers, Shift, Windows, Alt, and Control, to demonstrate how you can launch programs. You could launch other scripts. You could launch web pages. You could actually, you know what? Let me demonstrate that. I launched a browser. However, let's say we wanted to, and you know what? This will be a good one for the Windows G. Is let's say we wanted to run a certain website. So here I would put in, you know what? I want to save this so we have it as an example. But I'm going to comment it out. You know what? Let's demonstrate this. I'm going to leave those both there. I'm going to say run HTTPS colon. So I'm going to save this. When I hit reload, notice it says, hey, there's a duplicate hotkey. You can't have the same hotkey in the same script because it'll cause a problem. It won't know which one to run. So it warns you. That's another great thing about this, is it warns you. So for now, I'm going to comment this out. If it was running in another script, it would have launched and it would have just used the most recently launched one. So this, though, what I wanted to demonstrate was, oh, you know what? Actually, I called it Windows G because I wanted to run Google. There we go. So Control R, now it reloaded. Now when I hit Windows G, it launches my default browser and takes me to that web page. So this is how I could easily do a search. So let's that'll wrap this up here with dealing with hotkeys, and these ones I like to add in to just ease. I put something similar to this in every one of the scripts I'm working on that I'm adjusting. I always have it running in that script, and then when I'm finally done with it, I either comment them out or I remove them because I'll have another one that I'm working on, and I only put those in the active script that I'm trying to develop. Okay, the next thing we're covering are called HotStrings, or you can think of them as text expansion. For me, they are the lowest hanging fruit, the simplest thing you can learn today and be using it and be more efficient at a computer. They're so simple and important and save so much time. It was the first Udemy course that my colleague Jackie and I built on Udemy, because they're huge time savers. They're way overlooked by everybody, and they're just one of those little things. Once you get them, you realize you do type the same things over and over and over, and they're really helpful. So let's go ahead and start working on them. What we're going to do is let's do a little example here. So let's say I type my email address a lot, right? So I'm going to put in 2 colons. And think to yourself, what do I want to type as the abbreviation for my email address? So I'm going to say JTA because this email address happens to be joe@theautomator.com. And then you put in the 2 more colons, and then you type what you want, joe@the-automator.com. Notice you make sure you put it in the case you want, like uppercase. Here I uppercased my A, right, because I want that to come through, but I don't want it here, and I want my first name to be capitalized. And so I'm going to save this. Since I still have this running, I'm going to hit Control R. Now it just absorbed it. Now, when I type JTA period, now it didn't do it right then, but when I hit a space, a return, or a tab, basically any kind of ending character, it swaps that out for me, right? So it's a very simple thing to be able to learn how to do. You can replicate this to your heart's end. This will work. I could open up, do I have a hotkey? Yeah, Control N will open up Notepad, JTA period space. There's my email address, right? It is just the simplest thing in the world. You could put in paragraphs of text. Like let's say also we wanted to have a line break. So I'm going to do this tilde, which is to the left of the number 1. Tilde N stands for like a new line feed is the actual character for it. So, and make sure if you do edit your own, add it into the script here, that you don't try to save it and reload it, because that'll cause an error. So new Joe at the Automator is tick in email, tick in address. I'm going to save this. I'm going to Control R to reload. Let's go back to Notepad. Now when I type JTA period space, it put it across different lines, right? It added a new line. So if you wanted to have multiple things in here, there is a character limit on how many you can do in this structure. However, you can have up to like 16,000 characters in a different way. You can look at the HotStrings help, which on that my web page for this beginner course, I have a link to it about how to do continuation sections. But it's really that simple. And so here, let's get back. I'm going to hit Control D, which is a hotkey in Sight for duplicate the line. And I'm going to get back into my email address where when I save this, Control R to reload, come into Notepad. You know what? I think I can, let me see if I can type down here. Yeah, I can dump it in here. So see that space at the end? Well, often I'm using my email address or as the user area in username for a form, and I don't want that space at the end because that of course would break it. So it's a simple change in AutoHotkey is just add an O in between the first two colons. Now when I save this and reload it, when I come in here and type JTA period, now watch what happens when I hit space. So notice where my cursor is, it's right at that M, it didn't add the space at the end. And so it's a very simple thing to adjust where if I am using a email address or maybe a password, now, you know, do discretion if you're saving passwords because the password will be stored in a plain text file that's easily visible by anybody, right? There's ways around it and I have a video on that somewhere, but it is, they're not secure, so just be careful with it. But it's very convenient to be able to do this. So things like, you know, just some things you just don't want to space out at the end. Sometimes you want to, it might be plural, sometimes not. And this is an easy way to do it without having to backspace to get rid of that extra space. Another example that I want to demonstrate, and this will wrap up the basic HotStrings, is there are certain characters. Because up here, this Windows key, the pound sign, the Alt key, this exclamation point, this caret is control. AutoHotkey interprets these as very special characters, right? So you can't, let's say we were doing this, see the STB, if you're a Seinfeld fan, you'll get this. You have to see the baby exclamation point, right? So I'm gonna save this, reload it. Now, when I come in here, and I'm doing it down here because if I do it here and then I save it, it'll break my code, right? So I'm typing in here, STB period space. Hey, it sent, you have to see the baby, but no exclamation point, right? Why is there no exclamation point? Well, that's because it literally thought, hey, let's send the Alt key, right? Because it's a special character. So there's two ways, very simple ways to take care of it. There are other ways. We're going to handle two of them right here. The first way is to wrap this. Anytime you have a special character like this, wrap it with these curly braces and save. Remember, save, reload, watch that green H will flash. Now, STB periods, now see it has the exclamation point. So that's option one. Option two is you can leave this the original way, but put an R in between here. So I'm going to save this, reload it. There it goes. And STB period space. And that works also. Notice here we have the space, which is perfectly fine, but I can put the O in combination with the R. Save it, reload it. Come down here. See the period space. And now we have it without the extra space, right? So even though this looks like the word or, it's not. AutoHotkey, you can put multiple things in here, and it's a simple, easy way. Well, let me do one more fun one it's good to know, is if you don't want to wait for that tab or space, you want that hotkey to get replaced right away, you can use another one here, is you put in the asterisk. So here is, let's say, HW period. Oh, actually, you know, I don't want the period here, so there we go. So this is going to send hello world, save it, reload it. Now, watch what happens right when I hit the W. So H, now the second I hit the W, it dumps it in, right? I didn't have to hit that space or a tab or a return after. So those are three things you can easily adjust in HotStrings. Again, HotStrings, to me, it might to some of you seem very simple and oh, maybe I'll use that, maybe I won't. I can't stress how much you realize you type the same words or same URLs or passwords or email addresses or names of companies over and over and over, or even entire paragraphs, right? So this is a lifesaver. It just saves so much time. And in a second here, we're going to switch over to launching a spell check that will run. Again, this will work in any program, right? I could have been a notepad and it'll dump it in, right? Any Windows program. So it's running across all of your tools. Every once in a while, you have a little problem sending to it, and that's also check out my Udemy course, or just read the search and read the help. I push my Udemy courses little just because they give a good guide. It's not that I want to make a ton of money. I don't mind making money, but it's that they give a nice flow and they cover things and they give you an order. And some people really like having the structure and the order. So let's get into the next one with using a spell check. All right, this spell check I found on the forum years ago, and I tried backtracking it to get the documentation where I found it, but I couldn't find it. Anyway, it has nearly 4,000 words in it, and it's great because no matter what program I'm in Windows, as long as the script is running, it is doing the spell check for me across all of those windows anywhere I'm typing. So let's jump into it. You can get it off of this main page, and I'll put a link in this video too. But on this main page down here, download spell check. I'm going to right click and say save link as. And here we're going to save it. For now, I'm going to save it. Let's go to the where I have those other files saved. AutoHotkey for beginners. Here we go. And I'm going to call it spell check. That's fine. Save it. Now it's going to save it. I'm not going to launch it here. What I want to do is let's look at that directory, and I'm going to come in here and say edit. Oh, gotta highlight it. Edit, script, and now this is going to pull it up, and I want to talk through a couple things before we launch it. Notice these. Here's the source, just so you have it here too. This is where you can get it from. And that no environment, we're familiar with already. Single instance force, absolutely. Send mode input, great. This one is basically turning off because these are spelled properly, right? So it turns off the backspacing for some of these hot strings. So because those are often the spell check will think it's misspelled, but it's not. And so we're turning it off for that. Now here are examples, and look how big this file is, right? Like I said, it has got 4,000 words that will autocorrect for you. So it's a really helpful script. Let's go ahead and do a demo. Let's pick the one let's do America. So sometimes apparently people forget the C, because I guess there's no C's in America, maybe a few oceans. But let's say America. Notice the star here, so it's not going to wait for us for an ending character, right? It's going to do the replacement right away. But unfortunately, I haven't actually launched this yet, right? And right now in the system tray, we don't have anything running. Right now, this one has been killed for now. But let's go ahead. What I want to do is to come back into where we saved it, and I'm going to get the path to this file. So come in here, copy this, go back to site here, and this is actually going to cause a problem, but I want to demonstrate this as well. So I'm going to say run, because we want it to run the script. This is the folder, and then it's what was it, spell underscore, I can see it at the top there in the other tab, check.hk. Now if I was to save this and relaunch this script, we see the one green H running here, and it's just test, right? But hey, why didn't that launch the other script? Well, the problem is if we have a hotkey, or if I had a return, this top part of your script is the auto exec script, and it happens up until you come down to like a hotkey or a return or anything like that. So what we want to do is things that we want to launch, we want to have it at the top part of your scripts. And so now I'm going to save this. Now if I relaunch this or hit Control R, you're going to notice over here, now we have two green H's, and it's unfortunate that it always puts in that same default icon. And this is where it gets really confusing if you have a lot of scripts running at any given time. I typically have like 5 to 7 scripts running at a given time, all the time, right? For this example video, I've ripped everything out so I don't confuse anybody. But remember, this needs to be at the top in your auto exec section. Otherwise, it won't get to it. Basically, it stops. It stops before it reaches it. Now, there's an easy quote unquote cure for this one. Is at the top here, again, if we don't want these two green H's, well, hey, the spell check, I want it running all the time. It's rare I'm going to edit that file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and that's why I've added this here, is this no tray icon. If I save this, and you know what, I could launch it from here, but let's come back in, and we don't even have to be here. I can just hit Control R, and you'll notice the green H is going to go away. So I'm going to hit Control R. Now that other green H isn't there, but the script is still running, and I'll demonstrate that by coming in here. Let's come back down to our America example. There we go. So I'm going to start typing A-M-E-R-I-A, and notice it put in the C, right? So the script is still running, but we don't have it in the system tray. There's some major benefits to this is that if you have a lot of scripts going, it doesn't get confusing down here. The drawback, of course, is I couldn't come in here and right-click and say edit. So it can be a pain, and I have another script that you can use that'll it'll show you all running scripts. I could go to my task manager and I could find it from there and right-click and kill it. Or I could come back in here and I could just go to edit it. I could even find it in here and right-click and say edit. Right, so I can get to it that way, but it just won't be in your system tray. And you can change the icons, like in some of my other scripts. I have it where I change icons. I even have a script to automate changing the icon. So Google that on my YouTube channel. But it's I recommend hiding, only having 1 to 2 in there, because otherwise it just gets too confusing. And so I only allow my one script I'm playing with to be there, and then I'll change it. Either I hide it or I change it to a different one. So let's demonstrate a couple other things in here. Notice down here at the bottom, they have abbreviations. So I can type SEP period. That's funny. It was trying to interpret that. SEP period space, and it puts in September for me, right? So this would be a spell check, or let's do the days of the week. I see sun space, right? So it has a lot of default ones. Of course, you could either comment these out or delete them if you don't want to have them in there. Obviously, the word may, that one's going to come up in a lot of sentences, so they didn't do it for that one. But you get the idea, right? This is a great, easy tool to have running, and it runs, like, let's go back to, oh, I don't have it launched. I was going to say, let's launch Notepad, which I just don't recall. We got rid of that hotkey. I'll just turn it back on, save, reload, Control-N to launch it, and I'm going to kill it real quick because I'll forget that I did that. And if we do the SUN period space, there's Sunday, A-M-E-R-I, no C, A, America, NOV, November, right? It'll run in every program. So if you're like me, I actually have a couple tools that allow me to text from my computer. It's so easy to be able to automate texting and be using your HotStrings to help type the stuff that you want to send, right? So it's super simple, super fast. HotStrings they're a really, really, really great tool that I highly recommend. Also, don't add too many. The spell check's one thing because it's doing automatically, but the regular HotStrings, don't add too many at once. Baby step into it. Also make abbreviations. So like mine, what I do is for email addresses, I'll put, usually mine are my own email addresses are different because I have about 8 and I do them differently. But if I knew, let's say, Abraham Lincoln, and he had an email address, I would do Abraham Lincoln email, oops, and then a period. So unfortunately that one may not do because it looks like that's actually a word, and this would be abe@gmail.com, right? So, oh, and I actually, look at that, I messed up. There we go, that's better. And this one, of course, I'd want the O in there, so I'm gonna save this, reload it, E. So it's basically the first two initials, are the first 2 letters, followed by an E, and then a period. And so that helps me have a pattern, and it makes it easier for me to remember all my HotStrings because I have hundreds upon hundreds of them, and it can be confusing. But again, they're super helpful. And so let's get going on the next section. Okay, so I want to do one more with the hotkey just to demonstrate how easy it is to remap keys in a given program. Let's say, in a lot of programs, Control-H will do the search replace functionality, and the Control-H to me just isn't the most intuitive hotkey. So what if I wanted to send a different, hit a different hotkey to send Control-H? So let's say I wanted Alt-R. So Alt-R. That's going to trigger this. Now we're going to send Control-H and make sure you add the return because we're on more than one line. So I'm going to save this. Control-R will reload the script. I saw it blink. Now I'm going to hit Alt-R, and notice this came up, which is the Control H. Now, the Control H still works in sight because I didn't replace that. But when I hit Alt R, it sends Control H, which is what the active program is going to interpret as, oh, hey, he hit Control H. So it's a great, easy way to adjust something. If you don't like the hotkey or accelerator key in the program you're in, you can write it just to redo your own. Now, when I was actually doing this, I came up with a little bit of a problem here. Let's change the Control R. Let's just comment it out so we don't have that one for now. You could do this. This works technically. So Control R is going to send. You know what? I want to leave that. So we comment that one out. There we go. We're going to do Control R to send Control H. And before, the Control R was up here. So this technically will work. So I'm going to save this. Let me minimize that. Reload the script. I think this should with Control. I'm going to hit Control R. Now that sent the Control H. However, I gotta caution you. These modifier keys have to be the same. So if I was trying to hit Alt R to send Control H, unfortunately, so let me close this, reload the script. Now I'm gonna hit Alt R. It doesn't work. I just hit it. It doesn't work. And basically what's happening is this is what gets passed along. The control, whatever modifier key was here, is going to be the same over here. When they're the same, it works fine. When they're different, then you need to put it onto the next line and then add the return, right? So if you just get in the practice of doing them on the next line, then you're fine. Right? If you're going to use the same modifier key, you can have them on the same line. If not, then put them on a different line. So I hope that helps. And again, just think about it. If you're in a program and you don't like, the commands being sent, it's a great, easy way. The hotkey that the program is associated with it, you can make your own. And the other one I wanted to point out was you can make context-sensitive hotkeys, and I'll have a link in the webpage about this. But basically, I could have it say, if I'm in Sight and hit Control R, do one thing. If I'm in Notepad and I hit Control R, do another. And if I'm in Word and hit Control R, do something else. So they're context sensitive, meaning they understand what program they're in, the active program, and it's going to do something different. They're not totally hard to do, but considering this is a beginning video, I didn't want to, do too much in this video, training video to show you. So that's it, and then next we'll move on to our next section. Okay, now we're going to work on sending mouse clicks to a given position. And before we dive into the code, I do want to caution you because Windows often are in different locations or they have something in front of it, and it's not the most consistent and reliable way to automate programs. There's a lot of other ways. I have a lot of, we have webinars and tutorials on different ways to approach this. However, this is easy, and if you're controlling the environment, it's definitely something you can easily do, set up, and let's go ahead and dive into it here. So let's pretend we're going to click this. We'll stick with the Control H type thing. This is let me activate the program here. So this is the replace button. We want to get this. Now the problem, of course, is we need to know the coordinates of where that button is, right? So the sending of the click is easy. There's a little bit of stuff we need to figure out where we're going to send it to. So there's a really simple command. It's the mouse get position, and it's going to ask for the two variables to store it. So you can see here output var x, output var y. Those are suggestions. So we'll just call this one loc x, comma loc y. Oops, loc y. There we go. That's all we need there. And to start off, let's do a message box. Oh, you know what? Well, we'll finish this here. So message box, and x is at, and this is where we're going to wrap our variable name, the thing we just had, loc x, with percent signs. And that will make the message box display the value in the variable, not the actual text that we have there. So x is there, and y is at, oops, y. There we go. So unfortunately, right now, I could run this, but guess what? We don't have a hotkey to trigger it, right? So let's add a hotkey. Let's say what? Let's say Control. Oh, I got a Control M. Control P, sure, for position. So I try to think of them as, meaningful. So hit Control P to get mouse position. Now, of course, this is going to change later because we're going to swap this to actually click in the position, but for now it's fine. So I'm going to save this. Control R to reload. Oh, I disabled my Control R. I think I disabled it, but I didn't restart it. Now Control R works, and this is where I'm trying to show you a little bit of the troubleshooting while you're going through this, right? So Control P is going to get, if I hit it right now, it's saying X is at 384 and Y is at 758, but that was down here, right? So we're going to redo this, come up here, now hit Control P, and now we have to remember 481 and 93. So actually, I'm going to leave this up here. By the way, any message box in AutoHotkey, you can come in here and hit Control C, and come down here and paste, and it will have the contents from that message box, right? So it's a nice, easy way to get that little insider tip there. So this is going to be the X is going to be 481. So let's comment this out, and I'm going to keep these numbers. So X is 481 and Y 93. So I'm cheating here because the next thing is, we'll make that a comment, and I'll have this, and now we're going to click. So we're going to say click, comma, and now it's as simple. We enter those numbers, right? So 481, comma, 93. And that is that. Let's add a return so it doesn't keep going. So I'm going to save this, reload. And now when I hit Control P, notice it moved my mouse there. Oh, look at that. How did I get the wrong thing? We can go back and watch a video. I will bet you money I was on the wrong thing when I did that. So simply, we will disable this, re-enable this. Oops. Well, I need to reload the script, make sure we're over the correct thing. And this is why, you'd practice, right? Walk it through. So 435, yeah, look at that, I was off, and 87. Now the Y, it's this way, so that one probably can stay the same, but the 435, this should have been 435. Right, because your X is going across and the Y is the up and down. So now I'm going to save, reload, and hit Control P, and there we go. So funny how I got distracted apparently and moused over the wrong item that I wanted to click. Now again, if I had a window up in front of this, it wouldn't care. Oops, hey. It wouldn't care. It would have clicked, in right here. And this is why that sending of a mouse click just isn't that robust. Or if I move this to another monitor, the coordinates are going to be different. Or even if I move it like this, the coordinates are going to be different, right? There's a lot of reasons why this can break, but this is just the simple way of, hey, sending a mouse click to a given coordinates. Often we put our windows up, we maximize them, and the things don't move. So it definitely can work. It's just not the most robust way. By the way, I have a script called Automate My Task on my website, and it eases the pain of getting these coordinates, finding an image. It actually narrows it down by the controls. It's pretty robust. It'll search everywhere for you. You just lock in the image and then say, go click this or go send text to this edit field. So check that out if you're interested. But that's it for the sending of a mouse click to given coordinates. In this section, we're going to explain how, if you want to share your code with someone else, or that you want to run your code on another computer, you don't have to install AutoHotkey. It's very, very easy to compile a script in AutoHotkey and give it to someone else, or just run it on another computer. So let's go ahead and get started. We come in here, go to Explorer. This is the easiest way. Highlight the script you want, right-click, and just say Compile Script. Right, that'll actually create an executable program in the same folder. It takes a couple seconds. So here now I have an executable program. I can take this to any Windows computer. I don't have to install anything. I just put it on it and run it. And when you run it, you'll have the, if it had a system tray icon, it'll have it down there. Let's do this with the test. So I'm going to right click, say in that one, compile script. I'll end up here with a test.exe. And that one, because we have hotkeys in it and the icon is showing, it should show up here in the system tray. And that's it, right? other languages, this can take a lot of work. Python in particular, I would compile scripts and it was a process, and it's amazing that it's so easy in AutoHotkey to compile a script and give it to someone else. And if they're running even down to Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, it's very, very consistent. There are some things with the pre-Windows 7, there was no user access control, and so things were slightly different. So XP might be just slightly different, but generally speaking, they're very stable across all versions of Windows on different computers. Now, the program itself might be a little different depending if you're sending mouse clicks and the coordinates, right? I mentioned that earlier, but the heart of the program stays the same. So that's simple. As we wrap up, I wanted to share some helpful links and resources that can help you automate everything. And let me jump over here on this. So in this beginner page, right, which I'll have in the resources here, there's the absolute documentation, commands, and keys. These links, I have these 3 bookmarked on my main default homepage. I use them a lot. That documentation and commands, those are great. The keys are when you're just getting used to understanding what keys you want to send. All 3 of these are just must-haves that you use in and out. The forum page, the overall AutoHotkey forum, it's an amazing forum. The people are super helpful and nice. You can definitely go there. You can find a ton of things already solved for you. There's different forums. Let's jump to it real quickly here and show you. So the main page here breaks down into different forums. So there's tutorials, scripts. These are completed scripts and functions. Here's where you go to ask for help. And then down below, you'll actually see, here are the links to the other languages. So if English isn't your first language, you can actually ask questions about that in that language, which is great. And so I have those here. Discord is also, it's a live site. Well, I shouldn't say live, right? But people hang out there, and they're more than happy to help you with what you're working on. And then you can share screens. And so it's a dynamic way to be able to talk to people and get some help. But you do have to use this link to create an account for it, by the way. Like I said, I have over 600, maybe it's over 700 YouTube videos on AutoHotkey now, and I cover a lot of different topics. So you can definitely go there. This tutorial in specific, this playlist is specifically geared towards people like you that are just starting out in AutoHotkey. There's not a ton of videos in there, but there is a deeper dive. We skimmed over the installing a editor and installing the program and discussing it. I go a little deeper in these. And then there's, we've given over 50 webinars on AutoHotkey, and we have also, I think now around 65 podcasts discussing different things with automation. I did mention earlier, I have 3 Udemy courses here, and if you click them from here, there's a coupon code that you'll get a discount for. So for the, basically for the Intro to AutoHotkey, HotStrings, like I said, HotStrings are just amazing, and the intermediate course. These are all, they're roughly between $10 and $12.99. So if you come here, you'll get the best deal that there is, and I'll get more of the money. It's hard to explain, but Udemy, if you come in from other places, I end up getting a tiny fraction of the money instead of getting them from here. So I'd appreciate if you click these links. At the same time, it is going to be the cheapest price you can get. So that's why I have them here. There are AutoHotkey books by Jack Dunning. Jack's been writing for over 30 years, and he has a ton of AutoHotkey books. You can go to his blog. 2 of the books are free, and then you can download or order the other ones. They're very reasonably priced, usually between $4 to $6, I think. And if you're one of those people that would rather have a step-by-step, very minutia work, it's really great because he also gives you a ton of examples of how you might use AutoHotkey. And that's one of the things I do a lot of my videos as well, is just talk through what I've automated, because it's easy to kind of get caught up in doing something and not realize, hey, a lot of the stuff I do daily can be automated. So I hope that helps. AutoHotkey is a very rich, robust language. We didn't even scratch the surface of what it's capable of. This is just to introduce you to you, but you can do things like web scraping. I have a screen clipping tool. It'll grab text. You can do regular expressions. It's an object-oriented language, so you can do some pretty advanced stuff. But the API calls are another great one. I do a lot of automating of Excel and Outlook, so sending emails or automating reporting in Excel. Anything with the Microsoft Office program, you can basically connect to programmatically and really well drive it. So go ahead and check it out. My site alone, if you come up to the main site here, there's There's a lot of different things in here that you can learn about. What using functions, where are they? So here's the functions. Controlling programs with controls, that's another really great one. The web scraping I mentioned with either IE or now with Chrome, which you can see in here. Again, it's web scraping, Excel. AutoHotkey Studio, once you get a little bit more robust, is an amazing editor. It's the default editor I use now, but I do have all these videos on site on how to customize site and to do some advanced stuff. Thank you for watching my video. If you found it helpful, please like it now and share if you think that others will benefit from it. The more you share, the more we get likes we get, the more videos like this we can make, and it just helps support us. Also, if you're interested, you can go to my site and go to sign up for our alerts. Basically, we send out alerts of new stuff, new videos, new things we've learned, new concepts of how to do AutoHotkey and automation, as well as just things you might want to automate. So we hope to see you there. Thanks again. Cheers.